So there's been some reports that The Last of Us 2 is suffering from a significant crunch near, of course, the release of the game and such. And there's a lot of people who ended up leaving Naughty Dog who came out stating that the work conditions are terrible over at Naughty Dog and that the crunch, so to speak, which is what is happening with a lot of game developers now, where people are being pretty much overworked is what the crunch means in order to get a game released. And so I wanted to take this time, guys, to talk about not only this scenario with The Last of Us 2, but just the crunch in general when it comes to video games, and kind of give you guys like my thought process on this and kind of how I feel about it. Because I do feel that the crunch is something that's almost inevitable with any game. I mean, if you think about it, I always kind of look at the past and what other different mediums have done in the past. And so I can speak for filmmaking because I have been involved in different short films as well as feature films and have worked on a number of movies in the past. And I can tell you that there is a crunch in the filmmaking industry, just like there is in video game development. It's really no different. There is just a crunch time of when, of course, the studios have to get these movies out to the public, and like there's specific deadlines and such. And so there is a crunch in filmmaking, and there's no debate about it, guys. There's going to be times and there's going to be days and weeks, nights where you are working a significant amount of overtime and things of that nature. Now, what I'll say is that with filmmaking, it doesn't really get reported that much. I mean, sure, there might be delays. There may be some people who say, "Oh, I've been, overworked," but it's pretty rare. A lot of times you'll actually see people who love making movies are okay with the long hours. That's just part of what it is as a filmmaker. I remember, guys, I was a second assistant director on a feature film called Angel's Perch. I was actually labeled a second assistant director, but nonetheless, guys, basically, I remember with that film, and that was a lower budget film, right? I think the budget for it was maybe around $100,000, or maybe it was a little bit over that. But nonetheless, I remember there were days, guys, where we would get up at like 5 in the morning, and we weren't done shooting and filming and being on set until well into the night, 11:30, midnight, even after, 1 in the morning. And that's just what the film industry is. It's just, they're grindy hours. Because here's the thing, when you look at the filmmaking industry and the amount of time that you have to make a movie, a lot of times the studio they say, look, you need to get this done in 30 days. You got to get this film done in 60 days, 90 days, however many days it might be. So there is crunch on an every single day basis, especially if you're delayed by a day or something. Like, you're going to shoot a scene that is supposed to be really sunny out, but it ends up being really rainy. You have to be consistently shifting what your schedule is doing. So what I'm saying here is, guys, is that there is a crunch in filmmaking, but it never really gets reported. Now, with the video game industry, because the industry is newer, we are starting to see a lot of people complaining about the crunch. Now, look, if you love making video games and that's your job, you should embrace even the crunch, even though it got labeled that. It's one of those things. As long as you're getting paid the overtime, sure, I understand if like you haven't slept in days and all of that. I get that, but there's gonna be days, guys, in the gaming industry, just like the film industry. You're getting up at 4, 5 in the morning. You won't get done until 11:30, 12, 1, 2 in the morning. There's gonna be days like that, okay? And you just gotta accept it for what it is. And look, I think that once people start realizing that all of these like worlds are gonna kind of collide somewhat or another, that being like the gaming industry, the filmmaking industry, all of these industries, I think, because the game development and video games just in general are newer than that of movies, we're just not there yet. It's kind of like we're trying to get a structure there. I remember I remember with Grand Theft Auto 5 that some of the actors or the voice actors and actresses were trying to get paid royalties for their for their work essentially within the game. And then Rockstar was basically was kind of pushing back on it, saying that we're just not there yet as far as royalties and all that stuff goes with actors and actresses who are voice acting in video games. And I think the industry's starting to get a little bit better, because if you're doing voice acting in a film, you're going to be getting royalties for pretty much for forever, right? From that movie if it's generating revenues. The same should be said for that of video games. And so there was like these, just all in all, there's things that the video game industry is behind on. And the crunch is one of those things. This is just a normal thing that's going to be happening. The one thing I will say about what bothers me the most, more than the crunch, because I understand the crunch from a filmmaking perspective. I've never done it in a game development standpoint. But from a filmmaking standpoint, I've done it quite a bit. And I can tell you, sure, it's grueling hours, but you love and you're so passionate about that. Like, you're so passionate about filmmaking, or you're so passionate, I can assume, about game development, that either way you look at it, guys, you're passionate about it. It's like, look, I'm getting paid to do this. I'm getting paid to do what I absolutely love to do. Sure, there's gonna be a grind. It's a real grind to get some of these games out, to get these movies out. You just have to accept it for what it is. And that's at the end of the day, that's what I really think. Now, game development, sure, I'm sure it's different than that of filmmaking, obviously, but I don't know. I can see kind of, when you look at like the behind the scenes of game development, and you kind of see there's certain aspects to it that are similar to filmmaking, in my personal opinion. So anyway, all in all, guys, the things that bother me though about game development are when a video game or a game developer says, we have to delay this. We give you a date, it's going to come out April 2nd, and it's not going to come out actually. We have to delay it until later in September because it's just not ready yet. There's a couple of things there. Number one is, do you really see that much in filmmaking? Like, when they give you a date in filmmaking, they give you a date in the film industry, like Star Wars or something. They say, look, this movie is coming out on, December 31st. It's coming out this day, no matter what. You don't really see Star Wars getting delayed, right? And The Last of Us, we could probably agree that it's not really Star Wars, right? But it's a juggernaut of a franchise in video gaming, kind of like Star Wars is in filmmaking. So what I'm getting at here, guys, is that I just don't think it's acceptable for a game to be delayed and such in a way that how normal it's becoming. I think when you say, don't tell us that there's going to be, when the game is coming out, if you're not 100% sure that you're going to be able to stick to that deadline. That's what bothers me the most about the video game industry right now, is they say, look, it's going to come out in April, but then when we get kind of close to it, then it gets delayed. Now obviously with the outbreak that happened, the pandemic, I can see, stuff getting delayed at that point, like how all the different movies got delayed because of, a national, worldwide crisis that happened, obviously, with the pandemic. But if it's not something like that, and it's just, you as a game developer can't really see that, oh, this is actually going to take us longer, just don't give us the date until it's ready to go. And I know that there has to be dates and such in place with like the publisher, that being Sony and such, but I just think that we as a gaming community, we are expecting, just when you give us a date, we want to stick by that, unless it's something that is, completely out of the ordinary, to say the least, with like a pandemic. That's just my personal opinion, guys. That's what bothers me more than the crunch, because I understand the crunch from a filmmaking perspective, but you don't hear about it because filmmaking's been around for so long. You'll hear some people say, oh, well, that set was terrible to be on. There was a lot of toxic people and such, but you don't really hear them coming out and say, oh, you know what, that film, it took us, I didn't get sleep for 3 weeks, and it was it was just a horrific experience and such. You don't really hear that much. It's usually, this is what we do as filmmakers. You are going to be working long hours. You might be getting paid. You might not even be getting paid that much. I remember some of the movies that I've worked on in the past, I didn't get paid for it, but I did it for the experience. I did it because I loved the industry. Same thing can be said for game development, guys. That's just my personal opinion. I want to hear yours, though. In the comment section below, guys, what do you guys think of the crunch as far as from a video game perspective? And what do you guys think about it compared to, like, the filmmaking industry? Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. And for more Last of Us 2 content and videos, stay here with Zero TV.